Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 221 of the podcast, or you're joining me live on Facebook or YouTube. Today is Sunday, December 13th. December just flying by. We're fast approaching the holidays. Awesome MMA card that happened this weekend, UFC 256, headlined by what has to be the greatest flyweight fight of all time. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. Before we get into that, I want to wish a happy belated birthday to Jeff the Animal Wilson, who will not be joining us today, if you can't tell already. I guess he's still carrying over the birthday festivities, but please do reach out to Jeff and wish him a happy birthday. I have to admit to you all, and do this publicly, I did not call Jeff on his birthday. I knew that it was his birthday, obviously, but these are the kinds of things that happen to your brain when you have a toddler, and things just get away from you. You lose track of what day it is. So I need to publicly apologize to the animal. I did not call him on his actual birthday, which was Friday. But if you want to wish him a happy birthday, do so on Twitter and Instagram at animal_Wilson. All right. Well, UFC 256, where do we start? I'll tell you where I'm going to start. With my buddy, Billy Quarantillo. Obviously, we had a fantastic main event, an awesome co-main event, but I have to kick things off with my buddy, Billy, who had a tough decision loss to Gavin Tucker. What can you say, man? I mean, Billy was never out of the fight. He was a step behind on the feet. He was a step behind with the wrestling. He was a step behind with the grappling. That's what happens sometimes, when you're fighting at this level. But he was never out of that fight. He got in Gavin's face as much as he could, and you could tell after this fight that Gavin Tucker was changed from this fight. But give it up to Gavin, man. There are not a lot of people on this planet that can keep up with Billy's pace. I can tell you from experience, the guy is relentless. I know I tell you guys all the time. And he has such a great attitude, too. I know he's going to bounce back from this. He's going to come back better. He's going to come back stronger. He's going to work on the things he needs to work on. It just wasn't his night last night. And that's going to happen at this level. Especially the division he's in, that featherweight division, has so much talent that people don't even know about yet. Probably a lot of people don't even know about Gavin Tucker, how good he is, but they will soon. I don't see Gavin getting back in there too quickly. You can't have a quick turnaround after a war like that with a guy like Billy Quarantillo, who just will not go away, no matter what you do to him. I mean, Gavin could have had a sledgehammer in there with him. He wasn't putting Billy away last night. So I'm proud of Billy for going the distance and hanging in there, even though he was facing a lot of adversity. But he's been there before, and he's clawed his way back. So I have no doubt that he will do that again. So shout out to my man, Billy Quarantillo. I know you'll be back. All right. Now we can start at the top. I can follow my own formula here because I'm the producer. Nobody tells me what to do. Deiveson, Figueiredo, and Brandon Moreno. How fucking good was this fight? I feel bad for anybody who didn't want to tune into this pay-per-view because it was a flyweight title fight, or who turned it off after the Oliveira Ferguson fight. Because even me last night, I was watching this at my buddy Ryan's house, and with a few other people, and I was saying, like, man, how does it get any better than that Oliveira and Ferguson fight? And along comes Figueiredo and Moreno, and I really didn't know what to expect because these guys both just fought a few weeks ago. Figueiredo made the big cut down to 125. Moreno, I know, doesn't cut as much weight, but still had to do it, even though they each had first-round finishes. So impressive that they had such a quick turnaround and were able to come on and put on a performance like this. I think the judges got it right. As soon as the fight was over, I said it has to be a draw. I scored rounds 1, 3, and 5 for Figueiredo. I think he clearly won those 3 rounds. But in the 3rd round, he had the point deduction for the low blow. I think that was a good call by Jason Herzog, too, because he saw how, the pace these guys were fighting, a blow like that could really impact the rest of the fight. I don't know that it did. I think possibly what it really did was give Figueiredo a chance to rest and come back stronger. But, Moreno looked really good. I think he had a hard time waking up. He looked a little flat in that first round and weathering that initial storm of Figueiredo. Maybe that was the game plan, but he looked flat in his warm-up. He looked flat in that first round. But the second round, he really started coming alive. I believe one judge gave the first round 10-8 to Figueiredo. I'm not mad at that either. Figueiredo almost got him out of there in that first round. And I thought it was going to be a quick night. I did not see this one going the distance, especially after the second round. It looked like Figueiredo was fading and maybe Moreno was going to finish it. And then a tie changed in the 3rd. The tie changed back in the 4th. And then Figueiredo showed that he really does have that championship mentality, despite missing weight for his first championship try. He really does have that championship fighting spirit. He showed that by winning the 5th round of this fight, and would have won the fight if it weren't for that point deduction. And to me, when he did land that low blow, it looked like he was going for a knee to the chest, but wound up obviously kicking Moreno in the package. It happens. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. And again, I don't disagree with the point deduction. I think, referees should be making this call more often. Skip the warning, go right for the point deduction for eye pokes and for low blows. If you think it's going to be something that could impact the rest of the fight, even if they get their 5 minutes of recovery time, you got to take the point. And that's fair. I think that scoring this a majority draw was fair. I was not disappointed at all that it was a draw at the end of this. I was actually happy for both of these guys. They both put on the performance of a lifetime. This was an instant classic fight. A lot of people talking about it, in the conversation for fight of the year, up there with Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Weili Zhang, which seems like it took place forever ago, but that was indeed this year. Another fight, I always say, and I'm definitely biased here, another fight I think should be in the conversation for fight of the year was Billy Quarantillo's fight against Spike Carlisle. That fight was just amazing. It was nonstop action. It was so back and forth. Really fun fight. But let me know what you guys think should be fight of the year. Should it be Figueiredo and Moreno? Obviously, it's going to be considered for recency purposes, but who knows? Figueiredo looked vicious, man. I was most impressed with his gas tank. The way he was able to turn it up in that 5th round was so impressive to me. The body work was really impressive. He was ripping to the body with kicks and punches to the point where Moreno was dropping his hands so much to protect his ribs and protect his body. And despite all that, he was still able to win the 2nd and 4th rounds. So, man, the stock for both of these guys goes up. The stock for the flyweight division goes up. I'm sure guys like Cody Garbrandt are licking their chops to get in there with one of these two and put on a show like this. Obviously, there has to be a rematch. There's no other way to do it unless one of these guys is really injured and can't fight for a long time. I say give them a rest, but definitely put them back in there again. And this fight will draw, no problem, especially for flyweights. Figueiredo's probably going to go down to be the biggest drawing flyweight ever. And I think a lot of people probably forgot who Mighty Mouse Johnson even is. Shout out to Mark Fellows. He says that Weili Zhang versus Joanna is fight of the year. Thought that Moreno and Figueiredo slowed down in the 5th. It's fair. It did slow down, but, just compared to the pace they were going at, they were sprinting for 4 rounds. So that 5th round might have seemed a little slower, but that would be a really fast pace for like lightweights. Um, anyway, speaking of lightweights, co-main event, Charles Oliveira dominated Tony Ferguson. I cannot believe it. People were asking me a lot about this one leading up to this fight, and I hate giving predictions, because I know that those of you who listen to the show think I know what I'm talking about, and therefore, or maybe you think I don't. Maybe you listen to me because I sound like an asshole. But I don't like to give predictions because then people will gamble their hard-earned money based on what I say, and you definitely shouldn't do that, especially in a sport like this where anything can happen. But a lot of people were asking me leading up to this who I thought was going to win, and I thought Oliveira. I told everyone who asked me, I think Oliveira is going to win, but I thought he was going to edge it out. I didn't see him dominating Tony Ferguson everywhere the way he did. He smothered him from the first bell until the end. That arm bar in the first round was so tight. Another 2 seconds and Tony's arm would have been shattered into pieces. That thing was snapping in half for sure. And we'll never know how bad it was for him the rest of the fight because Tony's such a warrior. He would finish a fight with one arm. He would finish a fight with one leg. He would finish a fight with no legs. Tony Ferguson is one of the toughest human beings on this roster. No doubt in my mind about that. Especially seeing him weather this beating from Oliveira. The thing that impressed me the most, I didn't think that Oliveira would have a hard time on the feet. His striking has gotten so much better, and he throws wild because he's not afraid of being taken down. I didn't think he would struggle on the ground with Tony. I thought if he got on top, that he would be able to control him, maybe not as dominantly as he did. The thing that impressed me the most was his wrestling. The fact that here's a guy who does not have a wrestling background. He's a jiu-jitsu guy who learned how to strike for MMA. And Tony Ferguson is a credentialed wrestler. He's got the USA Wrestling tattoo on his leg. You got to be a pretty legit wrestler to have the nerve to put that tattoo on your body. Only a handful of. I can only think of a handful of fighters who have that tattoo. I know Chris Weidman has it. Obviously, he's a high-level wrestler, but man, Oliveira ragdolled him. He made him look like he never wrestled a day in his life. The body lock takedowns, just taking him down right into side control. And then when Tony would get on top, Oliveira would reverse and sweep him almost instantly. It was a masterful performance by Charles Oliveira, and he deserves to fight for the title in his next fight. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So whether that is fighting Khabib or fighting the winner of Conor Poirier, for those who haven't heard, there's rumors that Khabib is coming back, and he's in fact not retired. He is still in the USADA pool, so he's still being tested. So it's definitely possible for him to come back. I would love to see Oliveira versus Khabib. To tell you the truth, that's the fight I want to see. I don't even really care to see him fight Poirier or McGregor. I want to see Oliveira versus Khabib almost as bad as I thought I wanted Tony versus Khabib. If you had asked me a year ago, the fight that I most wanted to see, I really want to see Oliveira and Khabib. I think that's such a fun fight to make because Oliveira is so good on the ground. He doesn't care about being taken down, and he would have the advantage on the feet. So that's an interesting matchup for me. But for immediate future, I think it's going to be the winner of Conor Poirier. There's still a chance that they put an interim title on the line for that fight. Which, whatever, people are going to buy the pay-per-view with McGregor on it, but they may throw a title on the line just to spice that up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised at all because they haven't announced what they're going to do. They haven't said if it's a tournament. I think they were waiting to see how this fight played out, and they're probably going to make that decision within a couple of weeks. They're either going to announce that the winner is going to face Oliveira for the title, or they're just going to put a title on the line for Poirier and McGregor. My prediction. Okay. moving right along here. I'm drinking a pumpkin beer, guys. I know there's a lot of strong feeling about pumpkin beers. This is a Southern Tier Pumpkin, and it's past the season for these in most of the country. But I missed pumpkin season because it never got cold here. We had a cold front last week. It got down to the 50s or so. It was kind of nice for a little while. It felt like it was going to stay that way. It was 78 degrees today here in Florida. So I kind of bypassed the pumpkin beer season. I remember I was going, I think it was Thanksgiving Day. I went to go get some beer, and I was like, oh, I'll get some pumpkin beer. And they had all the winter beers out already. I was like, oh, man, I just completely missed this. Because you don't really feel like these pumpkin beers could be kind of heavy. They're a little sweet, so you want a little bit of colder weather when you're drinking these. I like this one because it's strong, and I don't drink a whole lot of beer anymore. So if I'm gonna be drinking beer, I'd like a stronger beer, so I only have to have one or two, and I don't get all bloated because that's what happens when you start to get into your late 30s. You can't just pound beers all day anymore because your face gets puffy. Anyway, Mackenzie Dern and Virna Jandiroba. This was a really fun fight, man. I thought the judges got this one right too. There was actually good judging on this card when it was needed, which it wasn't for a majority of the card. So many great finishes on this card, but the judges got it right. I thought Mackenzie won rounds 1 and 3, and Jandiroba won round 2 when she busted Mackenzie's nose up. So, on any other card, this could have been a fight of the night. These girls were going at it. I didn't see who got the bonuses. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that, but I'm positive Figueiredo and Moreno did, and possibly Oliveira and Ferguson, 2 fight of the nights. Kevin Holland should have gotten a bonus. Serghei should have gotten a bonus. Cub Swanson should have gotten a bonus. Rafael Fiziev should have gotten a bonus. Man, they should have just given everybody bonuses on this one. Tisha Torres looked good. All right, we'll get to everybody. Don't worry. Calm down, folks. Calm down. So, yeah, Mackenzie Dern and Jandiroba, 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu aces, and it turns out to be a slugfest on the feet. Fun fight. Neither one of these ladies really seemed to have the tools to get the fight to the ground, and neither one of them wanted to pull guard because they didn't want to be underneath the other, which is understandable. I think Mackenzie was trying hardest for the takedowns, and they just weren't there. They just weren't materializing. And that's the struggle when you're a high-level grappler without the ability to wrestle, then you kind of have to learn how to fight on your feet if you don't want to pull guard against a fellow grappler. So that's the way that fight went. Kevin Holland, man, and Mark just informed me that Holland and Fiziev got bonuses, which, okay, yeah, I'm cool with that. Kevin Holland, man, this knockout was crazy. Winds up under Jacare Souza, where nobody ever wants to be. Knocks him out from his back. I've only seen this a handful of times, and the only time that comes to mind is Nico Price. When he knocked somebody out from his back. Another time I'd have to really think on it when the last time I saw it was, but on his back, created a little bit of distance, pushed off the hips of Jacare, which is not an easy thing to do. Jacare is heavy as fuck on top. And when I saw Jacare try to take this fight to the ground, I was like, wow, he's going back to his roots. He's going to get on top. This is going to mean trouble for Kevin Holland. Holland pushes off the hips and winds up with a punch that hits Jacare in the forehead, which you're not supposed to knock somebody out with your fist hitting their forehead. That's just, it doesn't really work that way. You usually have to hit on the jawline where there's more nerves that could shut the brain off, on the nose, eyes, somewhere where there's more nerves, but it knocked him back, and then he followed up with a few more strikes one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen, definitely in recent memory. And Kevin Holland, arguably one of the fighters of the year for 2020. The guy's been super active. He's had some crazy fights. He's had some really impressive wins. This definitely the most impressive of them all. Over a legend like Jacare Souza, who, after this has to be nervous about the announcement of 60 fighters being cut from the UFC, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. Probably all of you have heard about that. If you're listening to this show, you're probably in the know about what's going on in the MMA world. So Dana White last week announced that they were going to be cutting 60 fighters. They started with Yoel Romero and Rachel Ostovich just to show that they're not fucking around with this. So, yeah, if you're a fighter with a couple of losses in the UFC, you're probably nervous every time your phone rings at this point. And I got to imagine Jacare is going to be bunched in with that because what Dana said was they don't want to keep people around who are, no longer have chances of making a run at a title. And, Jacare is probably in that conversation right now. Cyril Gane, that elbow knockout in the second round of Junior Dos Santos. Beautiful, man. Beautiful striking. He was able to keep Dos Santos on the outside, wouldn't let him get into boxing range, and finished him off. Third time that Dos Santos was knocked out in 2020, I believe. So he's got to be another one that has to be nervous about being on that chopping block, although I think the shelf life is a little bit longer at heavyweight. I don't think they'll be too quick to be cutting big name heavyweights like Dos Santos. So he might be a little safer for that reason, but he should probably sit out for a considerable amount of time, at least 6 months after being knocked out 3 times in 1 year. But Cyril Gane, I've been telling you guys about him for well over a year now. Not very experienced in terms of the amount of MMA fights he's had. I'll pull that up right now. But all right, so he's only had 7 fights. He's 7-0, only been to decision 1 time, and that was against Tanner Boser in his last fight before Dos Santos. So he knocked out Junior Dos Santos. He submitted Dontel Mays last year with that heel hook that he pulled out of nowhere, was winning the fight on the feet, and then pulled a heel hook out of his ass. And then submitted Rafael Pessoa in his UFC debut with an arm triangle choke. So, and he's got knockout power, obviously. So this is a well-rounded heavyweight. He's a polished striker. He's only 30 years old, which is like a freshman in this heavyweight division, where the average age, I think, is 53 or so. And it's even higher in Bellator. So let's see. Mark wants to see Cyril Gane versus Ngannou in a French Civil War. That's funny as hell. I don't think that'll happen yet. But I think a few more fights under his belt. Like, what are you going to do with Cyril Gane? Because people aren't going to want to fight him. He just knocked out one of the biggest names in the division. So you got to give him another big name next, but he still only has 7 fights. That's not a lot of experience, but yeah. Credit to Cyril Gane. Maybe he'll headline a card in France, the first UFC card in France eventually. I believe France just legalized MMA within the last year or 2. Cub Swanson, pleasant surprise here, knocking out Daniel Pineda with just a beautiful combination. And Cub looked good throughout this fight. A lot of people thought, and for good reason, that Pineda would come in with a lot of momentum because of his knockout over Herbert Burns. That was a huge win for him. I don't know, for whatever reason. I remember somebody asked me last night, how old is this kid fighting Cub Swanson? Because you always think like Cub's going to be the much older fighter. Like, this kid is 35. He's only 2 years younger than Cub Swanson. Pineda's been around for a long time. He did have a long layoff in there, I believe. But anyways, last fight knocked out Herbert Burns. Cub Swanson hasn't fought since he was here in Tampa his fight against Kron Gracie. He looked phenomenal in that fight. But before that, he had a pretty tough streak. So it was good to see a veteran like Cub, still have it, especially after coming back from that knee injury he sustained against Jake Shields in that quintet grappling event. I think Jake had him at a heel hook, and he tried to wiggle out of it, and he wound up blowing his knee out. Rafael Fiziev, who Mark tells me was the other bonus of the night, knocked out Renato Moicano. Just vicious, man. This guy's like out of a video game. Fiziev. I don't know if any of you remember his last fight, where he kind of did that like Matrix back bend. You probably remember seeing it, but I don't know if you remember that it was Fiziev. That fight was against Mark DeCasey. DeCasey threw a head kick at him, and Fiziev bent himself backwards, basically. It really looked like something out of the Matrix. It didn't even look real. So this guy's a stud in this 145-pound division, and he's going to have a lot of fun fights in his future for sure. I don't even know who you put him in there with next. Maybe you match him up with Cub Swanson. I imagine you're going to give him a bigger name now, because Moicano's got a name. And he was able to knock him out and make it look easy, which, Moicano's a beast, for those of you who remember his past. Gavin Tucker getting a unanimous decision over Billy Quarantillo. Unfortunately, I have to tell you guys that I agree with that decision. It sucks. It's a very unforgiving sport, so it sucks when you see somebody that and somebody that you've trained with and have been friendly with, and of course has been a guest on the show. And you see how hard they work and the things they sacrifice and everything they put into doing this sport. So, when you see them, getting beat up in there, it really puts things into perspective. But, it's all part of it. And Billy knows it's part of it. Especially all the negativity that's probably coming his way after taking a loss, because you get to be in the spotlight and you get people that are rooting for you to lose. That's why I never do that. I never hope to see fighters lose or get hurt or get injured or anything like that, because, even though I may not be aligned with the way they act or, the persona they put on for the public, I know they probably have their own struggles behind the scenes, and I know they have to be working crazy hard to get where they are. So I never want to see that for anybody, but at the same time, it's sports entertainment. People watch this to be entertained. They want to root for people. They want to root against people. That's just the way this sport goes. And I'm aware of that. Billy's aware of that. And he's got a great attitude, and I know he's going to come back stronger from this. Tecia Torres, fighting like a woman possessed last night, just beat the brakes off of Sam Hughes. Swelled her eyes up. She told her corner in between the first and second round that she couldn't see, and that's it. That's the end of the fight. And that's good. I believe it was her corner they said, I'm going to stop it, when she said she couldn't see, and that's a responsible corner. You got to respect that. There's no use in her going out there trying to fight with her vision impaired and getting hurt. Just learn from it and come back stronger next time. But credit to Tecia Torres, put on one of the better performances of her career. Her wrestling looked good. Her strikes looked good. She looked really vicious in there. Chase Hooper pulling a heel hook over Peter Barrett. So Peter was winning this fight in the first round, just tagging Chase Hooper up, making him look like he's never even done any striking before, which he has. He's decent on the feet, obviously more of a grappler and still a young kid. He's got a lot of development development to do. Dives for this heel hook. He did what's called an Imanari roll. So Imanari was a Japanese fighter. I believe he might still be active, but he was known for just diving in on the legs, and you kind of roll over your own shoulders. It's hard to describe. If you're really curious about it, just Google Imanari roll, Imanari, I believe, and you could see that it's basically an entry used in jiu-jitsu to get in on the legs without taking your opponent down. So you basically throw yourself on the ground and try to pull their leg into you. And he got a hold of the leg, but Barrett didn't really seem to know how to defend the heel hook because he kind of neutralized the position, and Chase Hooper was punching him in the face. And this is what I was talking about before, how it's hard to knock somebody out by punching them in the forehead. Barrett was blocking the punches by lowering his head down so that Hooper was punching the forehead. It actually really hurts, even with these 4-ounce gloves on, to punch somebody in the forehead, because that's the hardest part of the skull. So, put an MMA glove on and punch a wall. You're only going to do it a few times before you're like, fuck, this sucks. And that's kind of what it feels like when you make contact with somebody's forehead and you're trying to make contact with their cheek or their chin or their ear or their eye or their nose. All the ideal striking points to land a punch. So yeah, Barrett was blocking those punches with his forehead, basically, because he didn't want to let go of the legs. And at one point, he had his knee cleared. He was out of the submission, but he got too distracted by the strikes of Chase Hooper, and Chase used that distraction to his advantage to suck the knee back in and finish that heel hook, which was a nasty heel hook. But yeah, Chase Hooper, I think he's only 21 years old. A lot of work to do on the striking, but man, he's nasty on the ground. Not a lot of people are going to want to go to the ground with that guy. He actually fought a teammate of mine, Sky Moisacek, right before he got into the UFC. I think he was on the Contender Series, so it was a fight right before that, and it was a tough fight. So that's it for UFC 256. Figueiredo and Moreno, man, that's going to be an instant classic. Charles Oliveira, unbelievable what he did to Tony Ferguson. Nobody's ever done anything like that to that guy. Gaethje had a hard time with that, with Tony Ferguson. Even though he knocked him out standing, it took a lot of work to do that. So impressed by him. And Kevin Holland. If you missed the Kevin Holland fight, you have to go back and watch that. It was only 1 minute and 45 seconds. He just knocked Jacare out from his back. Knocking anybody out from your back is a huge deal. But a guy like Jacare, who's known for being a monster on top, to be able to do that to him, just insane, man. What a performance by Kevin Holland. All right, let's take a look to next week, the last fight card of 2020. I actually have not looked at this card yet, and man, this thing is stacked. This is crazy. We're getting so many great fights to end the year here. So the main event, Wonderboy Thompson against Jeff Neal. Nobody wants to fight Jeff Neal. Nobody wants to fight Wonderboy. So they're getting in there together. Wonderboy is like respectfully calling out anybody and everybody, and nobody will take that fight. Despite having ups and downs the last few years, he's still so awkward and still so tough to deal with. And Jeff Neal is so technical as well, but in a much more traditional sense. So it'll be fun to see these two styles clash, because Wonderboy has that wacky karate style, and Jeff Neal has straight punches, good footwork, big power, but he's going to have to get in on Wonder Boy. I imagine neither one of these guys are going to want to go to the ground. That's just not how they fight. So you're going to have a fun main event here to end the year. Co-main event, Jose Aldo and Marlon Chito Oliveira. I had no idea this fight was even happening. And this is what I do every week. I read about MMA. Why did I not know this fight was happening? I didn't see anything about this last night. They didn't talk about it. This is an awesome fight. Of course, Marlon Oliveira coming off of that big win over Sean O'Malley in his last fight, TKOing him. Wow, this is going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like this is going to already be my sleeper fight pick, but we got a lot of other fun fights on here. Wow. This card is stacked. 15 fights on here too. I feel like they're starting to add more fights now because they're losing fights from COVID so frequently. Kalen Williams and Michelle Pereira. That's a fun one. Marlon Moraes and Rob Font. All right. I changed my mind. This is my sleeper fight pick. Moraes and Font. This is a fantastic fight. Both of them have crazy good striking. Marlon Moraes, more of a power striker. Rob Font, he can box. He's got really great Muay Thai. Yeah, these are two top contenders in this bantamweight division too. So that's a really good fight right there. Talia Santos and Jillian Robertson, that's a good fight. Anthony Pettis, quietly sneaking into this card. He's fighting Alex Moreno. Bilal Muhammad and Diego Lima. That should be a really fun, really technical fight. Both of those guys are really hard to put away. And they're both good everywhere. Pani Kianzad and Sajara Eubanks is a good fight. Carl Roberson and Dalcha Lungiambula. That'll be an explosive fight, no doubt. I don't see that one going the distance. So, make sure you guys catch that fight, Roberson and Lungiambula. Duran Wynn and Antonio Neto, sorry. Cody Dern and Jimmy Flick. This fight was supposed to happen last week, and it got bumped, for whatever reason. I'm not sure. A corner man with COVID, one of the competitors with COVID, who knows? And that reminds me, too, even more impressive on Kevin Holland's part. He tested positive for COVID and wasn't able to fight last week. I don't know if he was able to train or what was going on there. I didn't hear any of the post-fight interviews or anything like that. He was supposed to fight Jack Hermanson and then got moved a week later to fight Jacare. Man, maybe you still do the Hermanson-Kevin Holland fight now. You got to give Holland a big fight because he just knocked out Jacare. So that puts him on a short list of people. Big things in the works for Kevin Holland, man. And that makes it that much more impressive what he did. He had COVID. I don't know if he had symptoms or whatever, but, just the stress of testing positive and having your fight moved and you're in the middle of cutting weight and everything going on at once. That's pretty wild. So big credit to Kevin Holland, man. So much excitement. If you guys can't tell, I was so excited to talk about the fights from last night. I'm so excited about the fights next week. I'm excited for the holidays coming up. A little bit of downtime, hopefully. Just relaxing, spending time with the family. I hope you're all able to do the same. I'm going to be busy the next few weeks. I don't know what's going to be going on with the show. I'm going to be traveling a little bit. I'll try to keep you guys posted as much as possible on social media. Of course, it's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. You guys can send me an email if you like, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to be going on with the show, but I'll definitely have updates for you guys. I'll try and put some holiday cocktail recipes together and do some videos on that stuff. I've been getting a lot of requests for things like that. I always like working on the holiday cocktails. And that's it, guys. Keep up on social media, keep in touch. Let me know what you guys are sipping on through the holidays. I've been getting some great bourbon recommendations lately. I've got a long list of bourbons I need to try, but it could always get a little bit longer. So let me know what you guys are sipping on out there. And I always love these conversations. If you're looking for recommendations as well, don't hesitate to reach out. I love putting people in touch with good spirits that kind of align with their tastes. So, anyways, I guess that's it. Again, reach out to the animal, wish him a happy birthday. If you want to grab an MMA on the Rocks t-shirt, you can do so through our friends at Team Reaper, reaper1.co. I'll put the link down in the show notes wherever you are watching or listening or consuming the show. T-shirts and hoodies available. And if you don't want an MMA on the Rocks shirt or hoodie, because it says over the top and under the influence, and it's not really your style to wear stuff like that, of course you can support a local level fighter and buy one of their fight shirts, or they have MMA gear now. You can buy MMA gloves, you could buy jiu-jitsu gis. They got a lot of cool stuff, so check out our friends at Team Reaper. And that's it. That's all we got. So until next time, cheers everybody.